Beautiful. I see some people popping in here, and just get these on a couple of different pages. As you guys pop in, feel free to share on your own pages or anywhere that you think people would love to hear our message. Oh, fun. Okay, here we go. Now we're moving along. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Good day, Lenora. Oh my goodness. We have a fascinating topic today. I'd like to bring up, hi, Betty. I had tattooed, I know tattoos like have ink and are terrible for us, but the word love tattooed on my arm with a beautiful feather. I love feathers. Moving into a crow. They're crows because I love crows, but one for each of my children, and how from the love from me, the love with inside myself. Hi, Sue. I then have been able to breathe the life of love into my children. And in turn, through them and through us, we become networks of love. And Colin and I are talking about how we can not separate life and love, how they coexist together, and how we work from that expression. And Colin has really been pushing the envelope for years publicly. And it's really time. We're in a time and a space now where consciousness evolution is ever expanding. It's ever expanding, and we have opportunities to move through and access these ascending hubs of love instead of the descending hubs of the controllers. And let's talk a little bit about the evolution solution of love. Colin, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I have my coffee ready.
Yeah, thanks, Chastity. I did a post on this this week, and I thought I might get about 20 or 40 likes and maybe half a dozen shares. But I got a very big response on that post, over 200 likes and over 50 shares. So it was extraordinary to me, but it did send me a message that the people are beginning to wake up more and more to a higher state of consciousness and a higher state of understanding. And perhaps humanity is ready to begin to understand, about life and love. And in my own experience, in that experience I had with my higher self, when he was explaining that when life and love are separated, then love becomes optional. So you can choose to love or not to love. And when love becomes optional, life becomes optional. So it introduces the notion of death. Mm-hmm. And it's very important for people to understand that love is not optional. Now, in the creation process, okay, love is a first source energy that comes out of source. And it goes through a prism, and it gets broken up into different frequencies of light, okay? And each one of those light prisms are a sub-harmonic of love. So you get love comes in, it breaks up in a prism, and it becomes grace, faith, uh, uh, kindness, respect, and joy. And then those go out into another prism and they get broken down. It's like a prism of crystal.
Yeah.
So crystal can receive information and pass on information, and it comes through waves of energy. And eventually the prism goes out and it builds all the different facets of love in this prismatic formation. And then what the fallen ones have done here, they've reverse engineered that technology to break down the life force energy into, you can really call it a death force energy. And that death force energy breaks down love into its lowest component, which is guilt, fear, and low self-esteem. So that's what humanity has been experiencing here for thousands of years, because the controllers here have reverse engineered the energy coming from source so that they can control us. And this has been a dilemma for me for many years. And I've really wondered, how does humanity change that? You know, and so I figured that once humanity understands that source comes out, the source light, first cause energy comes out from source and breaks up into different forms. For what purpose? To create life forms, okay? And all those life forms are an expression of love, the first source energy. And that those life forms cannot be separated from their creator. Now, on this planet, what people are indoctrinated with is that they're sinners and they are separated from God. And that they have to
from God. That's actually a really hard one. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that is very, very challenging for people, especially that have had religious indoctrination, which is the majority of the planet of some sort, either Judaism, Islamic, or Christianity or Catholicism. And these three forces are really kind of one and the same and just the same factions, but it's really hard for people to stand in their authority of who, and even being a fractal of God, a piece of God, an expression of God. And it's scary for them to think, to be able to think that I am God, not I am a God, but I am a God sovereign being. That's so hard, Colin, for people.
Yeah, it is very challenging. And I struggled with that myself, because I am not God. You know, how can I say that I'm God?
Yeah.
The thing is, if you understand the nature of creation, it's very diverse. If you just look at nature, the diversity that you see in nature, this whole all of creation is very diverse. And they're all diverse expressions of the same thing, because the creator energy, the energy of love, comes to create all different life forms. And all life forms are an expression of the first cause energy of love. So when one separates love from life, which has happened here, so that love becomes optional. So you can love or not love. You get that choice to love or not love. And when you have that optionality in love, then life also becomes optional. And that creates the death energy. That is the gap. That is the narrow gap that the fallen ones have used to reverse engineer us, because we separate out life from love. We don't see that they are the same thing, that life is an expression of love, and love is an expression of life. Yes. And so we have lost respect for life and life forms, and we have lost respect for love. We don't understand that they are the same thing, because we so easily will kill other life forms or destroy other life forms with impunity. So we don't carefully think about this. Is this act a loving act? So sometimes perhaps we need to, control the natural environment. And was the purpose that humans first came to serve on the planet. They were the guardians of the planet.
Yeah.
They were the stewards here who were meant to manage the environment. But instead of doing that, we have consorted with the devil and the controllers here, fallen under a system that neither serves us or gives us life. It is a death system.
Yeah.
And we just have to see what happened on this earth over the last 18 months to understand that's exactly what's happened here. Mm-hmm. Everyone is so damn afraid. And, all around me, I see people that I show symptoms of post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
Okay? And post-traumatic stress can be also, there's another use you can use for it, it's depression. Mm-hmm. People are depressed, and that's what the oppressors come to do. They come to depress.
Yep. Because go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just really excited about this topic because, and I'm seeing the depression and the PTSD existing together. They're a little bit different of a vibration, but still in the category of fear, guilt, and shame. And when they can remove the light, when we can't see the light, we can't see the truth. And when we can't see the truth, we cannot feel the vibration of love in its entirety. And it's just the further we step into fear, the further away we walk away from the light. We're turning our back on love, and we're turning our back on life, and allowing the system to become our life, which is a false construct.
Yeah. And if one thinks about this more deeply, okay, let's say we accept this proposition mm-hmm. that life and love cannot be separated. What are the implications for our daily living? What are the implications for everything else around us? And the implication is that everything has to change.
Yeah. No kidding. Stephanie's making an interesting comment. That everything has to change.
Yeah,
but look at what's
law
happening.
Will have.
Yes. She's saying that Fraudchi is saying that he has, we're having a little glitching, that he has PTSD. Now, see, this is really curious because this is a whole, these are part of the controller groups. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to claim that they have something. They're going to put it out there like, oh, look, all of you people out there, all of you slaves, look what you're doing to me. And I'm the one saving you. This is big hero savior complex comes in and then brings in guilt. To bring in shame, to see, it's like a vicious circle. You turn something on, and it's like, how do you turn around? How do you turn around and face forward and open your heart?
Well, that's a good example of what we're going to be talking about. Is because of the pushback from people who haven't queued up to have this jab, from people who said, no, we will not consent to this. It's only because of the pushback that we're going to reverse this whole thing. And that's, in that pushing back, what we're saying is, I stand in my own authority. I take back my sovereign rights. I take back all my rights as a free and sovereign person. And people are getting that. But it goes a lot further. When we become sovereign, what does that mean? It means that everything else is sovereign. So the trees outside are sovereign, the flowers outside are sovereign, the fish in my pond are sovereign. and we have to treat them as sovereign beings. But how do we do that? When we embrace the notion that life and love are the same thing. The one is an expression of the other. And with that kind of consciousness, we can change this planet. And I've seen how consciousness works. In 1971, when I was a young man of 21 years old, I was the leader of a youth group. And I was invited to a meeting where there was an organization that were going to do a large crusade in South Africa, evangelical crusade called the Golic Crusade, Egoli meaning gold, the city of gold. That's another alternative name for Johannesburg. And so I went along to that meeting and then reported back to my fellow leaders in the youth group, and I told them about it. So they said, we decided, well, we'd like to get involved, but how do we get involved? Well, we'd have to have a part of our own evangelical meeting. So we talked about it and we thought, well, how are we going to do this? We didn't know any evangelists in South Africa because we were Episcopalian. And Episcopalian were not evangelists.
Yeah.
So we decided to write to a couple of American evangelists and to see what their response would be. And one of them responded. Now, originally we decided we just want to have a 1-week evangelical campaign in our church and see how many people we can get to come to these evangelical meetings. Well, it just turned out that once we started putting the word out there that we had this American evangelist coming to South Africa, then other churches in the area said, well, you know, we'd like to have a week-long campaign as well. And so the Baptists and the Brethren and the Presbyterian, the Methodists, and all the other denominations started wanting to have this evangelist come to the church maybe for 1 night or 2 nights. And this whole thing just escalated to the point where we eventually ran a 6-week evangelical campaign across the whole of the Johannesburg area, from Springs right through to Roodepoort, which is quite a large area. And it was all done with a minimum of resources. I mean, we were kids. We didn't have money. And it just happened, people volunteered. And they said, yeah, we're with you. Then we went to a printer who happened to be a staunch Christian guy. And he said, look, I'll do all your printing for free.
Wow.
And so we printed pamphlets, brochures, boards that we could put up on trees and telephone poles, posters all over the place. And in that week, in those 6 weeks, every meeting we did was jam-packed with people. At our own church, when we first did the first week at our church, an Episcopalian church.
That's amazing. But
Every night it was jam-packed.
Mm-hmm. That's just so amazing to me, because you have a purpose. You have a purpose, and you're standing in love, and you're standing in authenticity. And go ahead.
Yeah, but what that taught me is once you have embrace this notion, you embrace love, you embrace all possibilities. Mm-hmm. It just gets a life of its own. The universe conspires to assist us to make this grow, you know, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew, and it was amazing. At the end of it, I sat back with my co-leaders and I said, what the hell just happened?
I think
None
that's
of us
amazing.
could believe it.
Yeah. I've noticed that when we're in alignment with love, we're in alignment just with truth, with light, with God. And it is absolutely astounding what happens in the path of love, because this is your experience is exactly what happens. People gather, people come together and stand up and say, you don't even have to ask. You could have had a thought like, well, I don't know how to do this. It would be really nice if, I could understand. And sure enough, somebody will come up and say, hey, I happen to be a specialist in this, that, or the other thing. Would you like some help? And don't worry about, uh, it's just everything falls into place. Everything always falls into place when we're in love. You could be getting, let's say you're short on, just to be funny, let's say you're short on toilet paper, and all of the sudden you open a closet you haven't opened and you find a couple of extra packages, or I'm just being a little bit silly here, but it's
Oh,
just when we're in
that's the
alignment,
way.
everything happens.
Yeah, that's the way it works. It
Mhm.
comes to you. People think they have to go out there to do things, So us 6 leaders in this little youth group created a 6-week campaign all over Johannesburg and the Witwatersrand area. And at the end of it, we thought, how the hell did that happen? Because we only planned a week of evangelical meetings in our church, and it just expanded and expanded and expanded. And it just, when people embrace an idea, okay, and the idea is life and love are the same thing. When people embrace that idea and they go with it, and they flow with it, it just takes on a life of its own. And that is what is required here. It just embracing the idea that love and life are the same thing, and that respect for all life forms is respect for love. And that's the only way we're going to repair the damage on this planet. It is the only way. When we are aligned with our values, and that value is love, then everything in life is certain. But what is happening on this planet, people have embraced uncertainty, and they are prepared to live with uncertainty. And the uncertainty is this, that I am no longer in control. God's no longer in control of this planet. We've given over control to a bunch of outsiders who are not creators. They are mimicking. They haven't a single creative idea in their heads.
That's correct. It's like watching the movies over and over again. They're the same story redone because that's all that they know. They're a false
Yeah,
template of who and what we are. They can't even reach they can't comprehend love, because they can't feel it, experience it. They're not empathetic beings. They're not beings of love. They're not beings of the light. And it's really the only way to keep them going is for us to embrace uncertainty.
yeah,
And they're going to keep pushing the envelope to see how far we're going to go, how much of this uncertainty and how much of this uh, uh, agenda are we going to accept. And it's really
yeah,
challenging. I see moms, I'm a single mom too. I have kids to take care of, but I'll be damned if I'm going to stand in their authority. Because if I stand in their authority, I'm completely worthless, not only to myself, but my children, my purpose, everything. And I would be beside myself, but I choose not to do that. I choose to stand in my own authority. I choose to stand and embrace love and shine that light out. And that's what I want to do. And it's really hard right now to watch other single moms or families, people saying, I have to do this. Otherwise, I'm not going to have a job.
yeah,
Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to eat. And I say, poppycock, you're going to be able to eat. You're going to find another job. I have one of my girls walked away from a job because they insisted she get this. And even in their own explanation, they don't even know, they're trying to mimic this fake authority and they don't even know what they're mimicking. They're just saying, well, I'm sorry, we can't do it and you're going to get people sick probably, and we don't know really how it works, but if you don't do it this way, then well, I guess we're gonna have to let you go. And she's like, okay, let me go. And that's scary. It's scary for people to do that, but it puts them in alignment with living in authenticity, living in alignment with love and life, and understanding that we have control of our own purposes, of how love is shared and expressed and lived as.
Yeah, and we're fortunate at this time that we're in an ascension cycle.
Yeah.
So the energies of the entire planet are being raised in
Yeah.
order to prepare us for the ascension. But here's something I would like people to consider. If you want to ascend, what do you want to ascend to? If you cannot embrace the idea that life and love are the same thing, that's impossible to ascend. Because the notion that life and love are separate is like I said, when it becomes separate, then love becomes optional.
Yeah.
And when love becomes optional, life becomes optional. And that doesn't exist outside of the universe, okay? In the universe of ideas, the universe of creation. And we're just a very tiny little part of the universe, this little planet.
Yeah.
And the rest of the universe doesn't work like this, and I've been taught by higher dimensional beings who showed me how the universe actually works. And when you compare that with how this planet works, the comparisons are just quite odious,
Yeah.
and if we want to ascend, what do we want to ascend to? What we want to ascend to is this notion that life and love are the same thing, and that we should, embrace that idea. Now, once you embrace that idea, as I did in 2006, because I woke up in 2003, got this message in 2006, and then I was invited to be a grid worker, gave everything away that I earned in Cape Town and just packed what I could into my truck and off I went, not knowing where I was going or how I was going to get there, but I just went because I knew that I couldn't be who I wanted to be in the environment in which I had been living.
Yeah.
So I left to create my own environment. And when I was leaving, I had a conversation with my higher self, and I was I was commiserating with myself that, life was going to be so difficult and tough for me. And, this is such unknown territory, and I don't know how I'm going to cope or manage. And, so I said, well, you need a standard to live by. What standard would you like to live by? And I thought about it, and I thought, what do you mean? He said, well, when you go into battle, you raise a flag, and that flag is your standard.
Mm-hmm.
It lets your enemy know what are your values and what you stand for. And when I thought about that, I said to myself, well, what I stand for is love. And he said, well, that's a good standard. What are you going to do about it? And I said, well, anything less than love in my life, either from me or to me, is not going to be acceptable. That's going to be my standard. And so I try to live according to that. When I say I try to, it was not easy.
Yeah.
It's not an easy standard to live by. And I don't want people to be under any illusions that this is an easy standard to live by, because
it doesn't happen overnight.
No. I had to learn many lessons, in this time where I reacted from my old self, my old standards and values, and I slipped up many times. But having done that, I just kept plodding along and going into this warfare with this standard that anything less than love is not acceptable, neither to me or from me. And I would catch myself, and sometimes in my reactions wanted to be my old reaction.
Yep.
I said, no, don't do that.
Yes. That's I find the most challenging, and especially if we're tired or we're worn down. It's so simple, and you could have been doing this for 10 years, and it's so ingrained, and because it's not just happened, it has not just happened in this lifetime. It's because it's
Yeah,
happened in multiple lifetimes. And whether you believe that or not is not relevant. It's the truth. And
yeah,
so the ingraining of thousands of years can't even happen in this one lifetime. So forgiveness, Lenora brings up forgiveness. Yes, you have to forgive yourself in each moment, in the moment that it's happening. It's so important to do because, and you have to extend grace. And this, as Colin said, is a part of love. It's the part
yeah.
of love and life perspective. I have somebody, sometimes people send me private messages because they don't like to jabber out here. So I just want to share this because it's a really great response to what we're showing. This person is an SSP survivor, so has been poked and prodded and working out of the darker consciousnesses and been gang stalked and all kinds of fun stuff. So lots of things to overcome, but they're saying the controlling groups know they cannot take down a group, but if they can isolate and separate individuals, then piece by piece they can take the group. Hence, when we stand in light and in the love and know we aren't separate or alone, it is more difficult for the controlling groups to take control. And that's their biggest weapon, is the separation and creating the feeling of aloneness. And it's one of the things that these groups do. And it's, again, to train our minds to be separate from the soul and continue moving on into this divide and conquer
Yeah,
situation.
because their law is a law of separation.
Yeah.
The law of the universe is the law of one.
Mhm.
Okay, and they're two totally opposed to each other.
Mhm.
And when people come together and when they hold that standard of love between each other, nothing can change that. No, nothing could stand against it. Not even the powers of darkness can stand against it. And that's what's happening now on the planet. People stand together. They protest meetings all over the planet this weekend. You know, here in South Africa, the ones I've seen is Italy, Germany, um, London. So these protests are going on, and it's people standing together. When people stand together in unity, it breaks down this notion of separation, that
Yes.
we can be separated and controlled as individuals. But just want to go back to the comment someone else made about forgiveness.
Yeah.
That is so vitally important because people think forgiveness is fixing the past.
Yes.
Yes, it is fixing the past, but it's also creating your future. Okay, because when you are weighed down by burdens of the past, you cannot fully live into the future. And when you stop making those mistakes you made in the past, you can build further and you can grow further into a different future. So forgiveness plays a vital role in not only forgiving others, but forgiving oneself,
Yeah.
because your ability to forgive others is dependent on your own ability to forgive yourself. And when you are forgiving of yourself, you're more easily able to forgive other people. That's how it works. I found that true in my own life. And in fact, many people have written about this. And that's, a universal truth, that forgiveness is not just fixing the past, but it's also helping to create the future.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. I've gone back to forgive myself in many situations. And in some situations, you can't, maybe maybe you've hurt somebody or you've done something that innately is wrong, and even you probably knew was wrong at the time. Starting with little things like that, going back, and it actually, when we go back to that time and place, So you use your imagination, you go back to the time and place, and you don't have to count backwards and do a big meditation. You just bring it up in your mind and you go to that situation and you watch it like a movie. You remember it to the best of your ability. And you say, I'm sorry, or please forgive me, or you can go back in the situation and you can actually change what you say or what you said or what you did, and it switches the outcome to come to the future moment. So then your feeling is going to be different, which means you have changed. Maybe you can explain this better. You've changed fractals of reality to bring them into the present moment so that it's like it's healed. There's no more fragments and fractures. There's nothing that is creating that um, mind, body, soul separation. It's actually healed, and it can actually go back and heal the person. And sometimes those sometimes those situations actually disappear from your memory. So you may have even collapsed the timeline and integrated everything that needs to be integrated into the future one purpose timeline. Yeah, I hope that makes sense for people. It's rather easy to do. We just make it sound so complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, if one understands, as I do, that from a holographic perspective, our reality we are creating, but we co-creators of our reality.
Mhm.
And everyone in your reality is an aspect of you because you are one. You're not separated. So when you embrace this idea of oneness and unity in the hologram, everyone who is in your hologram is you and has a connection with you. And we are here to teach each other lessons. We are here originally as a community of angelic humans before the fallen angelics came out. Our purpose was to be stewards and guardians of this planet. And we had a different consciousness than a consciousness of unity and mutual support of one another. But when the controllers came out, what their purpose was to, as someone has rightly said, to separate mankind, to separate us from everything, to separate us from nature, to separate us from Mother Earth. Mother Earth is not separate from us. She's an integral part of who we are. She provides us with water, light, and air. She provides us with food, and she's a conscious sentient being who has the same soul structure as we have. So this notion that we are separate from the earth and we can keep taking from the earth and not giving anything back is stupid.
It is so stupid. It is so stupid.
Self-destruct.
Mm-hmm. The more in tune I am with everything, the more I can feel the vibrations in my own body of even the wind through the leaves of the trees outside. It is amazing when we just tap into that. I'm currently actually trying to manifest one of these beautiful trees to just lovingly drop a branch so I can bring it inside, because I don't want to go cut it, right? Because I know it hurts. And so, but it's just kind of a silly way of saying, how in tune we are or how connected we are to that is that we are one. We are the wind, we are the air, we are the water, we're the fire, we're the earth. We are all of these elements, and these elements have been usurped and discombobulated, and everything's been turned around and flipped upside down. It's like putting your clothes on inside out. That's kind of the world that they left us with, is like everything just is inside out or upside down. It's really crazy. Mary, thank you. She's saying Lisa Renee has said in unconditional forgiveness and forgetfulness. And that's exactly what happens. It turns into, that's what happens when you collapse a timeline. There's this unconditional forgiveness that washes over you, which is actually the energy of love. And then that forgetfulness just washes as the second wave. And that's how all of this like connects and it just disappears. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's such a wonderful thing to forgive another person, but it's
Mhm.
also a wonderful thing to be forgiven.
Yeah.
you know. And I've often in the past asked somebody for forgiveness and they haven't forgiven me and they still held a grudge against me. And and so I have to let go of that.
Yeah.
Say it's okay. Their unforgiveness is not my business, it's their business. All I can do is say, I forgive them for not forgiving me,
Yeah.
because I must allow them to have that sovereignty to choose to express themselves how they wish to express themselves.
Yeah.
You know, so practically this notion of love is not an easy thing to practice. But
No.
having said that, I think the more people who begin to practice it is the only way we're going to change the system here. There's an old saying, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome, that is the height of insanity.
Mhm.
And that's what humanity do. And that's what the fallen angelics, they've got a playbook. They keep playing the Hegelian dialect, problem, reaction, solution, and man keeps falling for it every time.
It's the same thing. I'm like, they haven't changed the plays. Nothing is different. They're the same every single time. And it's like, I think it's about time we finally are just, I'm grateful that Earth was able to move in this next next vibration, because had had she not been able to move, or had we not moved into this, I don't think that as many of us would be able to see this. And so, I mean, we're just so grateful to be at the end of a cycle, to be able to see this. And I think, even if I'm recalling correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Colin, but the last cycle, I don't think uh, we didn't actually move into another frequency. Or maybe we did, but I feel like not enough people came alive to the truth. And so, which started like a whole nother cycle of the same 26,000 years, for instance, right? Because
Yeah.
we not enough of us like were shaken up enough or vibrated enough to access our cellular knowingness. There's some really great questions here. Mary's asking, and this goes into, in eternal oneness, is how far does our hologram stretch? And if we are all one, how do I integrate or disintegrate my oneness with the abusers?
That's a good question. And thank you for that question. Okay, if you begin to think of your abuser as an aspect of yourself that you haven't healed yet, and you deal with healing that aspect of yourself for yourself, the abuser will no longer be in your hologram, because you are creating the abuser by allowing yourself, not you holding on to past situations and past paradigms that you can't let go of, and letting go of things is not very easy, because we all feel that stability is created by holding on to things. And that's a false notion. We have to let go. So when we let go of notions of past, in the soul evolutionary journey that we all undertake, the purpose of that journey is to refine our souls. And we live many lifetimes, and sometimes we're carrying things from a previous lifetime that we're not consciously aware of. But that needs healing. And the way to heal it is to love oneself. By loving oneself, you create this expansive uh, environment in your life. You create this space for allowing of all things. So if the abuser arrives in your space, you don't have to heal the abuser, because the abuser is that aspect of you in your own life that you haven't healed yet.
Right.
So when your abuser appears, ask yourself that, what aspect of me haven't I healed with? That abuse has come here to remind me that I need to heal that aspect of me that I haven't dealt with. And so introspection and subjective observation, with the awareness that this might come from another lifetime.
Yes, thank you for
Often
saying.
people's problems don't arise from this lifetime only. They come, we carry that through because we are souls.
Yeah.
We are not bodies. We are not, our lives don't begin when we're born here. We are thousands of years old, and we have had many lifetimes, and sometimes trauma from a previous lifetime is carried in our soul bodies.
Yes.
So we have to deal with those miasms and traumas in our soul bodies. And the best way to deal it is to embrace love, because it creates the space for allowing others to come. It creates the space of forgiving oneself. It creates the space for forgiving other people in our own lives. And if we have this narrow view of life, then we have a very narrow view of love.
Yeah.
And if we can expand the view of life, we can expand the view of love, and we can love all things. Humans want to kill things. I find it quite a crazy notion now, because I've changed from what I was before. So when I arrived in a new apartment, and it was fine for the first couple of months, and then summer began to arrive, and then my kitchen was invaded by ants. And my immediate reaction was, go buy some ant poison and, poison the ants. I thought, no, I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to feed them. So I went and I bought a jar of honey, made a little hole in the top, and I put it on my windowsill. And every day while I was washing my dishes, I watched this little stream of ants go up to the jar of honey and come down again, and they went up and down, up and down. It took them 9 months, and they cleaned out that jar of honey, and then they just disappeared.
Wow.
They never came.
That's amazing. Especially those little ants, they can be so annoying too, but patience, it's patience. Mary's adding, she's also applying the idea to the satanic abusers, of which are also a part of her. And I like the notion and the understanding and idea that how you embrace a satanic abuser, how you embrace the abusers on the planet. It's really very curious, because using the eternal idea of oneness, there's something that Paul Selig, if you guys are familiar with Paul Selig, I love when he says, I know who you are, I know what you are, and I know how you serve. It brings this opening of identity of whether or not someone is service to others or service to self, and being able to express and extend, like you say, Colin, leave the space for love regardless of it.
Yeah.
People on this mission, we're not destroyers. We hold a line, we defend, we are defenders, and we are defenders and spreaders of love. That's what we're here for. We're defending love.
Yeah. And if we understand that love is far greater than the energy that they represent, and therefore we are far greater than the energy that they represent. So if we hold that in mind, dealing with them is a cinch. It's like the little dogs, pat them on the head. So it's okay, we'll fix you. But the trouble is, people are afraid of evil. They think evil is so great. And their way to overcome evil is through love, not through good. Goodness doesn't, because where does goodness come from? If you try your goodness, it's just not there, because that goodness has been taken out of us. But if the universal notion of love can be carried by human consciousness, it raises their frequencies, it raises their standing in the universes, and it raises them above the fallen angelics. It raises them above the controllers here. So I think when Jesus said, when your enemy smites you on the cheek, turn the other cheek also, he wasn't saying we are victims, so we must be allowed ourselves to be smacked around. What he
Right.
was saying, you are far greater than your enemy. You don't have to prove it. Just know it.
Mhm. Yes, that's really fascinating. And because I remember meeting a friend for the first time, and uh, the conversation was, gosh, I remember my whole life I was sharing, I remember my whole life I've been able to see demons and, things attached and this and that. And it's like consumed me. Well, I was like, it didn't consume me, but it was so much, especially as when I was younger. And, he just posed this question of, well, why do you choose to vibrate in a space that you're having to experience them? And I was like, huh,
Yeah.
excellent question, my friend. Excellent question. And so it was like, that was a huge game changer for me. And then I thought to myself, and this is something we talked about just before we went on the air, is like, I want to be the biggest expression of love, that I'm like jumper cables for people, right? That I light a spark everywhere that I go for people who are ready for that ignition, that we're, and then we just spark each other, and we just
Yeah.
keep going and moving, and we keep igniting each other with the memories of who and what we are.
Yeah. I like to get back to this notion of the controllers. I liken it to the story of Gulliver in Gulliver's Travels, when he
Mm.
travels to Lilliput, and then all the Lilliputians, they put ropes around him, they tie him down, and they're these tiny little things, and he's this giant, but he's allowing himself to be kept in captivity.
I love it.
And when he breaks out of captivity, he becomes the giant. And they are little people, and I was, there's so many lessons I learned out of Gulliver's Travels. It's a kind of analogy of this thing of the little people controlling the big people. That's one aspect of the book, but if one can get this notion that the giants here, the real powerful people on this planet, are us humans, the angelic human forms. But not all humans have the angelic human DNA. Okay, and many people around us, their DNA has been corrupted and their souls have been corrupted. But that
Yeah.
doesn't make them bad people. That just makes them corrupt people.
Yep.
Corrupt people aren't actually bad people, they're just corrupt.
I just started reading from, oh, I forgot, Secret Histories of the World. And oh, maybe Stephanie, if you're still listening, you can pop it in there, Secret Histories of the World and How to Get Out Alive, or something like that. Really fascinating book. It's super, super thick. But I was just reading about Adamic and pre-Adamic uh, humans, I guess, or and so and how they intermeshed, how the DNA was corrupted. Some came with higher sensory perception, some didn't, and were stuck in the lower forms. Anyway, I'm still reading. It was just a chapter, and some of it looked like it was coming from the Cassiopeians, and so it's just really fascinating to find like what's out there and understand. We're an intermixed group of beings, and some of us, even with angelic human DNA, we've chosen to come in and heal some of the other DNA structures that are not angelic uh, structures. And so we have chosen, whether you remember or not, you've perhaps chosen to help rehabilitate something. And so that's something to keep in mind too. You may be rehabilitating some satanic lines or Luciferian lines, or some of the seraphim, fallen seraphim consciousness structures. So it's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
When you're ready to think about that, because that's can get really mind bending. But there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. We're doing a lot here.
Yeah, we're doing an enormous amount. In a sense, I like to think of it as a large tapestry.
Yeah.
That and this tapestry has got a little hole in it, and somebody's got to fix that hole.
Mhm.
And we are the fixers to fix that hole. That's how it's a very big universal tapestry. And there's this tiny little piece that has come unraveled and it needs to be fixed. Now, there's no fixers outside of ourselves. No one else fixes our problems. We have to fix them ourselves. So we have to become the fixers here. And so we have to learn how to do that. And that's what we're doing. We're learning how to fix that little piece of fabric.
Yeah.
And even though the fallen ones are involved in what has happened to this planet's got a very long history. You know, it goes 543 billion years ago. We were attached to another planet called Tara. And then when Tara was blown up, then the Tara got blown into fragments, and those 12 fragments of Tara ended up in our solar system as the planets in our solar system. So, and then there's a long history, you know. So when we're talking about fixing this tiny little piece of fabric of the universe, there's a lot of history that is behind it. And we don't necessarily have to know the history, but if we begin to understand that we are far greater, we have a much longer history than we have been made to be aware of on this planet. On this planet, the history, everything we told you is a lie. Our history has been hidden from us.
Yeah.
And
That's challenging to comprehend, but it's true.
yeah. So there's a big problem, a big universe, and a little problem. And we're the fixers of the little problem.
But the little problem looks massive to us, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
but
that
the thing is, if we become the Gullivers, the giants, who realize that we're much bigger than the problem,
yeah.
we are very capable of fixing it ourselves if we would just stand in the gap and do the work.
Yes.
You know, that's all that's required. You know, we are not separated from Mother Earth. We are all beacons on Mother Earth. The trees are beacons. That's why they go upright. Everything that's upright, even the obelisks, they're all beacons. The pyramids are beacons. Energy enters beacons. So this energy comes into us and goes out from us. We push it down into Mother Earth, and Mother Earth projects it out. See, Mother Earth is an energy field, a field of energy. So we can fix it not by, you know, knitting or whatever. We fix it by standing in authenticity and in integrity and allow Mother Earth to fix it.
Yeah.
Because Mother Earth is allowing the sun to fix it, and the sun's allowing the galaxy to fix it, and the galaxy's allowing the central galaxy, central sun to fix it. There is no separation. People must get this notion of separation out of their heads. It's all a unified field of consciousness. But our scientists don't understand that. They'll never fix it because they're trying to fix it from the outside. You know, it's like if life and love are like a river, they just flow. But what happens is our scientists here are on the banks looking at the river. The only way to understand the river is to get into the river. Because when you get into the river gets into you. You know, you can't fix something from the outside. You have to get into it and fix it yourself.
Yep. There are a lot of people that have a, you know, myself included on this journey. What can I, you know, what can I take out here? Who can help me? Who's going to help me? And not that reading information, or sometimes we get stuck and, you know, maybe we need to go see a facilitator to say, hey, I've got a block, I can't see it, can you help me? And that's great, you know, or getting a foundation, that's good too. But overall, you know, that facilitator or that book or that person telling you a story isn't going to make the adjustments. They're going to put it's going to be a band-aid until you can actually see it for yourself, feel it, remember it, work through it, and then move on to the next level. We're an ever growing, we're an evolution of change, and there's so many layers of healing work that needs to be done from all of what Colin is talking about, from the earth all the way out to the universe, and histories and explosions. And I have faith, and I trust that all of this truth is going to come out. And it's going to come out because because we are remembering, because there are too many of us that are being activated to remember, and it can't be hidden. And there's still people out there saying, you're crazy, or you're a conspiracy theorist, or you're this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, not, it's not holding. Their lies aren't holding anymore, and they can't. And that's why this is like this last ditch effort. And before we go, Colin, I just want to say, because we're talking about creating a group consciousness and in the evolution of love, and in the authority of love, and that the more that this grows, the more this is, that this is the group that's moving forward. But what about everybody who stood in fear and chose this false, the way I see it, is it false or is it not false? Because how are people going to feel? This is a conundrum. How are people going to feel when information comes out about what was put in their bodies, or what choices and decisions that they have made? Because they are great protectors of their choices. We are great protectors of our own authority in that way. And how are people, how do we, what makes one right and one wrong, I guess maybe is my question, because this is the question that everyone is posing. You do your thing, I'll do my thing, and we're always right and correct in the moment. But when this comes to a head, what are you seeing for people who have chosen to be part of a false authority? Did I make sense?
Not quite. I think it has to do with the embracing love in all its aspects, because love is also compassion. It's a subharmonic of love. Love is empathy. Forgiveness is a subharmonic of love. Patience and kindness and gentleness and forgiveness, mercy, they are all aspects of love. And so we can't say, I love you, but I won't forgive you.
Mhm.
It's that is contradictory. We have to embrace all aspects of love. And Romans chapter 13, First Corinthians chapter 13 gives a good example of what love is. And they speak about what love is, but it doesn't go far enough. It should go much further than that. We understand that everything is an expression of love. And we can either choose the higher expressions of love or the lower expressions of love. Okay, so even hatred are the lower subharmonics. And that's a point of soul evolution. That's a point of ascension, when you can grow into higher aspects of love and embrace them and apply them and be them. That's where we're at this moment in time in this planet. And people, have that choice. It's up to people. It's only people can change this planet. Believe me, the skies are filled with angels, and I know some of them. And they want to help us, but they've told me over and over again, when humanity steps up to the plate, we will meet whatever they do with equal, if not more.
Yeah.
But they have to come. They have to ask. They have to say, we're prepared to do the work, because they don't want to come across as our saviors.
Yeah.
They don't have a savior mentality. They know that humanity can save themselves if they put their mind to it, and they put their hearts to it, and they put their effort into it. They can save themselves. And so that's where we're at this point in time, where people have to step up and say, enough's enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What a
We've had a
great
short,
conversation.
short hour meeting, but we can carry this on for a long, long
I
time.
know.
But
I
we'll do
know.
it quickly.
Yeah, we'll chat next time. We're a little bit over, so what a great conversation. Thank you everybody for being here. You guys can find Colin at thewritingsofcolinjoe.com, and you can also find him on Patreon. And I know you're always putting out new content and thought-provoking posts, so don't miss out on those. Anything else that you want to toss out there, Colin?
No, I think I've done enough damage tonight.
Beautiful. All right, you guys. I hope everybody has an amazing week. Happy Sunday. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Have a great week, everybody. Love you all.
Love you guys. Bye, Colin.
Bye.